Hey, have you seen this story coming out of Israel? A fatal shark attack.
I did see that. Yeah.
It's just one of those things that makes you stop, Especially the details. This wasn't some, remote ocean spot.
No, right off a beach, a place where apparently people have been seeing these sharks for a while.
Exactly. And interacting with them, which is part of the story, it really makes you think about our relationship with wildlife.
It really does. And these updated reports from April 23rd, they paint a picture that's pretty unusual.
How so?
Well, given the type of sharks involved and just how rare attacks are there generally, it's not what you'd expect.
Okay, right. The victim, Barak Tzach, a father of 4 in his 40s, he was snorkeling.
Yeah, and it sounds like he was mainly there to, observe and maybe film the sharks.
That's what his wife said on Facebook, wasn't it? She was quite clear he wasn't trying to, mess with them, not feeding them or anything reckless.
Right, which is an important detail here. Because these sharks, dusky and sandbar sharks, they're known in the area.
They're endangered too, I read, a whole group of them, a shiver.
That's the term, yeah. An endangered shiver. And they've become a bit of an attraction, drawing people to watch them for years.
So people know they're there. And conservation groups have been trying to, what, keep people away?
Sort of, yeah. Advocating for more separation, trying to manage the interactions. But it sounds like that hasn't always worked.
Apparently not, because the reports mention just before this incident, it was a holiday week. And there were tons of people at the beach actually swimming with the sharks.
Right next to them. It sounds unbelievable.
And doing things like grabbing their tails, feeding them.
That's what's reported. Despite warnings, despite a swimming ban being in place.
Wow. There are videos, too, apparently. One might even show the attack itself.
Yeah, videos circulating of these interactions, it really paints a picture of people getting way too close, maybe losing that sense of boundary with wild animals.
It just sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it?
Sadly, in this case, it seems it was.
So, okay, for this deep dive, that's really what we want to explore. We've got this incredibly sad event, and it raises so many questions. Like, what led up to this? How common are shark attacks anyway, globally? And why is it considered so rare right there in Israel?
And what exactly happened in those moments based on the accounts we have?
Right. Let's try and piece that together. Okay, so starting with the incident itself, what do we know from the accounts?
Well, Barak Tzach, the victim's wife, she described him going into the water with his snorkeling gear, and he had an underwater camera.
To document them, not interact.
That was the intention, yes. She said he'd done it before, just observing. And importantly, there was a fisherman with him.
Okay.
And that fisherman apparently confirmed that Barak didn't try to touch or feed the sharks when he first went in.
So he wasn't provoking them initially. But what about when they got close? Because, sharks are curious.
That's right. And the account says when they did get too close, he used his camera stick.
The one he was filming with.
Yeah, to gently kind of nudge them away, create a bit of a distance.
Which sounds like caution, not aggression.
Exactly. It suggests he was aware of the potential danger and trying to maintain space respectfully.
So what went wrong?
Well, according to his wife's account, the fisherman called him back to shore. And as Barak was swimming back, slowly, that's when the attack happened.
Oh, man. Just like that, while he was trying to leave.
Yeah. And then, the aftermath. A 2-day search.
Right. They had to search for his remains. That's just awful.
It really is. And they did eventually find them. The authorities naturally closed that beach and others nearby right away.
Yeah, standard procedure.
Yeah.
I saw that Doron El-Mashali from the Fire and Rescue Unit mentioned using underwater cameras in the search.
Which just emphasizes the environment, doesn't it?
Right.
Right there in the water where these sharks live.
Okay, so let's talk more about these sharks. Why are they even there? This shiver of dusky and sandbar sharks.
It's quite interesting, actually. I mean, they've been a pretty consistent presence near the coast there for several years.
Near Hadera, right, the Rabin power plant.
Exactly. The reports suggest a link to the warmer water discharged from the plant. It seems to attract them, especially during certain times of the year.
So it creates this kind of artificial warm spot they like.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
There was even a note about this specific gathering back in November 2022. So it's a known phenomenon.
And these aren't small sharks we're talking about.
No, definitely not. Dusky sharks can get quite large, up to maybe 13 feet, 750 pounds.
Whoa.
And sandbar sharks, a bit smaller, but still substantial, maybe 8 feet, over 200 pounds.
Okay, so sizable predators. Which makes the behavior of the beachgoers even harder to understand.
It really does. Swimming right next to them, tugging tails, throwing food.
Yeah.
Like the warnings in the swimming ban just weren't registering for some people.
It's a complete disregard for, well, reality, isn't it? They're wild animals.
It suggests maybe a desensitization,
Hmm.
or perhaps just not understanding the risk involved when you interact that closely with wildlife.
There was that video mentioned too, right? A shark in really shallow water.
Yeah, apparently swimming in just thigh-deep water. And the person filming sounds almost excited.
While a kid nearby wants to leave.
Right. That little exchange mentioned in the report really highlights this kind of disconnect, doesn't it? The casual reaction versus the potential danger right there.
It's like the novelty factor completely overrides caution. Okay, so let's widen the lens a bit. Context. How rare is this for Israel?
Extremely rare. According to Yigal Abinari from the Israel Nature and Parks Authority, this is only the third recorded shark attack ever in Israel.
The third. Wow.
Yeah, and the last fatality was way back in the 1940s. So you're talking decades and decades with basically no fatal incidents.
That really puts this specific event into perspective. It's highly unusual for that location.
Absolutely. It underscores just how infrequent negative interactions are between humans and sharks in those waters normally. Makes you really question what was different this time.
And globally, how does this compare? I know the International Shark Attack File tracks this stuff. What did last year look like?
Right, looking at their report from last year, they investigated 88 alleged interactions worldwide.
Okay.
Out of those, 71 were confirmed as actual shark bites. And they break those down further.
Into provoked and unprovoked.
Exactly. 47 were classified as unprovoked, meaning the shark initiated it without any obvious human interference.
And the rest?
24 were provoked, often linked to people trying to feed or handle sharks, things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. What about fatalities, though? That's the key thing here.
Globally last year, there were 7 fatal attacks reported.
7 worldwide.
Yeah. And out of those 7, 4 were deemed unprovoked.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the report also noted an overall drop in deadly attacks compared to previous trends.
So, even globally, fatal unprovoked attacks are pretty rare events.
Very rare, statistically speaking.
Which brings us back to Israel again. Globally rare, exceptionally rare in Israel. So why might this have happened? Sticking just to what the reports suggest, of course.
It's the crucial question, isn't it? And we have to be careful not to speculate beyond the info we have. But, some potential factors seem clear from the context.
Like what?
Well, just the sheer proximity. You have humans and these large sharks sharing the same space very closely for extended periods. That alone increases potential risk.
And the interaction part. The feeding and touching.
That's definitely a major concern raised. These documented instances of people actively feeding and interacting with the sharks, over time, that could change the shark's behavior.
How so? Like they start associating people with food.
Potentially, yeah. Or they become less wary of humans, more bold perhaps. It can habituate them in ways that aren't predictable or safe.
So even though Barak Tzach himself apparently wasn't doing those things at that moment.
Exactly. His wife was clear about that.
The general environment, the behavior of other people over time might have created a more dangerous situation overall for anyone entering that water.
It's certainly a possibility that the general pattern of human interaction in that specific spot influenced the shark's behavior in general. It's complex. Animal behavior isn't fixed. It responds to the environment.
Right. It's a really sobering reminder about respecting boundaries with wildlife.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. The key takeaways seem to be, this was a truly tragic but very rare fatal shark attack in Israel.
Exceptionally rare for that location, yeah.
And it happened in this really unusual context where humans were regularly getting very close to and even interacting with these endangered sharks.
Despite clear warnings and bans, which is a crucial part of the picture.
And while fatal attacks are rare globally and almost unheard of there, the specific circumstances, the close proximity, the history of interactions, they might offer some clues, even if we can't know the exact trigger for this specific tragic event.
That sums it up well. And it really leaves us, and you listening, with a significant question to ponder, doesn't it? As we spend more time in natural environments, as our world gets more connected, how do we strike that balance?
Between our curiosity, our desire to see wildlife up close,
and the absolute need for safety, both for us and for the animals. What's our responsibility when we enter their world?
Yeah. How do we coexist safely and respectfully? It's not always simple.
Not at all. Definitely
Yeah.
something worth thinking about long after this deep dive ends.